I'm going to tell you something that happened to me back when I was in high school. I was living in Daegu at the time, and this was in the middle of August during summer vacation. My best friend Hyunwoo was transferred from a school in Gwangju about a year back. He told me one day during summer that he was going back to his hometown to visit his grandparents and asked me if I wanted to go with him. I happily said yes, and we arrived at his hometown the next day. Hyunwoo told me to rest and to relax while I was there, but he himself had planned to help out his grandparents with the farm and the livestock. I was there for an experience, so I volunteered to help out with the daily chores, and we worked the hours of 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single day. On the third day, we had finished working the field and were both resting under the cool shade of a tree. I was about to fall asleep when Hyunwoo's grandma came by with an ice-cold watermelon. Between me and Hyunwoo, we finished the whole thing in under 20 minutes, then fell asleep as soon as his grandma left. I woke up sometime later because my bladder was about to explode. I asked Hyunwoo if he wanted to go to the restroom as well, but he said he was okay. Looking back, it's quite impressive how much piss his bladder could hold. But anyhow, the field was too open and plain for me to do my business out in nature. So I had two options. I could either walk for 5 minutes across the neighbor's field and do my business in the forest at the edge of the plot, or walk for 10 minutes and go to a proper restroom at Hyunwoo's grandparents'. I opted for the former because I didn't want to walk. I was maybe 2 minutes away from the forest when an elderly couple called for me and said, "Young man, why don't you have some watermelon with us? It's sweet and cold. Come on, come join us." As I mentioned earlier, my bladder was about to pop. Therefore, I politely declined the offer and was about to walk away when the elderly gentleman angrily said, "You have no manners, do you? A senior offers you something, you don't just walk away." I bowed to them in display of respect and pleaded, "Gramps, I really have to go to the restroom. That's why I can't have the watermelon. Sir, I'll come back in a minute." As I walked away from the elderly couple, I could hear the elderly man still grumbling about my attitude. I just ignored him and continued walking. I watered the trees in the forest and began walking toward Hyunwoo's location. I was walking on the same path to give proper apologies to the elderly couple, but upon arriving to the spot where they were sitting at, I saw a pair of mounds that looked to be old graves. I was spooked out initially, but I figured I must have missed them earlier due to the imminent explosion of my bladder. On the same night, as Hyunwoo and I were about to hit the sack, I told him about the spooky coincidence of the elderly couple and the burial mounds. As soon as I said that, I could see Hyunwoo's facial expression change from relaxed to completely spooked out. He proceeded to explain to me that I could have seen the ghosts of the elderly couple who used to live on that plot. Way back in the past, that plot of land, which today belongs to a neighbor, it used to have a house built on top of it. The house caught fire one day and the elderly couple died together in the house. The children of the couple demolished the house, then buried their parents on the same plot of land. Years later, the land was sold to the current owners, the Lee family. The first thing they did upon purchasing the land was to exhume the bodies to move the gravesite to a different location. They managed to do so, but not without consequences. The Lee family claimed to have nightmares of the elderly couple after the exhumation. They said the spirits haunted them every night and they could never get proper rest. It took a month of suffering for the Lee family to decide to bring back the bodies to the original gravesite. After doing so, the nightmares stopped and the family could have peace again. The burial mounds have been looked after by the Lee family since then, and all has been good for them ever since. That's the story behind the gravesite, but it's still a mystery to me why the elderly couple had offered me the watermelon and what would have happened had I accepted the offer. One week after high school graduation, my friends and I went to Ishigaki for the first time to visit their famous beach. We had planned to stay there for 5 nights and 6 days. The first day, we mostly kept ourselves busy eating, shopping, and sightseeing. On the second day, we went shopping again and went to a museum in the afternoon. It was already the third day when we hit the beach, and boy was it beautiful. Believe it or not, I had been to the beach only twice up to that point in my life. I think most kids in Tokyo think the same. We don't really feel the need to be anywhere else but in our little bubble. We think wrongly that we have everything in the city. After spending most of my 18 years in the concrete jungle, it was refreshing to be surrounded by so much nature. By this, I don't mean that you couldn't do nature-related activities in Tokyo, but it's the mindset of the people in the city. We just don't seek nature in Tokyo. Most of us don't anyway. In any event, I was taking a stroll on the beach while my friends were in the water. I wish I could jump in the ocean as well, but I had a bad experience in the pool one time and after that developed a minor phobia for swimming. As I continued walking, I saw a couple kicking a soccer ball with their child. The kid looked to be around 8 or 9 and he was having so much fun. Seconds later, the ball was kicked toward me and I was going to grab it but then missed it by an inch. The ball rolled onto the beach and then into the water. I wanted to grab it for the kid, but I just couldn't muster up enough courage to enter the water. The waves quickly carried the ball further into the ocean and the boy ran after it even though the father shouted for him to stop. There was a window of about 2 seconds when I could have grabbed the child, but I hesitated and let the boy go in the water. The strange thing is, the waves around the child and the ball looked to be moving much faster than the surrounding waters. I don't know if it's something that happens out in nature, but it looked really scary and intense. It took less than 10 seconds for the child to be carried out far into the ocean and the father jumped in to go after him. A lifeguard followed the father in less than a minute after that, but by that point, you could no longer see the child's head poking out of the water. He was gone, and now even the father was having trouble keeping his head above water. Fortunately, the lifeguard managed to save the father, but the boy was long gone by then. Emergency services kept searching for the child all day. I stayed nearby throughout the search effort because of the guilt I felt for getting frozen in a critical moment. As the day drew to a close, the police escorted the parents away from the beach. When the father was passing me by, I remember the look of sorrow and hatred in his eyes. He knew I could have saved this kid. He was blaming me for the death of his child. I broke down when they left, and there was nothing that my friends could do to make me feel any less guilty and heartbroken about the whole situation. My friends spent the rest of the vacation doing the activities we had planned to do. But me, I couldn't do anything. I stayed in the hotel, reliving the nightmare of losing that child on the beach. I just couldn't forgive myself for not stopping him from going into the water. On the last day of the vacation, I went back to the beach to pay my respects and to apologize to the boy. The beach was nearly empty because it had rained all morning. I approached the spot where I had lost the child, and that's when I saw a tiny head of a child poke out of the water. I thought for a second that it could be the body of the boy. I was so driven by guilt that I jumped into the water to try to recover the body. The water was up to my neck in just seconds, and I could hardly stand on my toes any longer. Even so, I tried to reach the body by timing the waves by taking in breaths of air on the way up, then breathing out on the way down. The technique didn't work for long. Seconds later, my feet were no longer touching the ground. I couldn't keep my head above water, and I could feel the salty ocean water pouring through my mouth and nose. I was drowning and slowly being washed away further into the deep sea. I woke up some time later, regurgitating water and among other things. I was on the beach and a gentleman was huffing and puffing, looking down at me. I struggled to speak initially, but I managed to ask him about the body of the child. He told me that there was nothing in the water. Apparently, he was paying a close attention to me before I jumped into the ocean. According to him, I looked like someone who had given up on life. He saw everything that I did on that beach and said to me that there was absolutely nothing in the water. There was no head poking out of the water. My friends took me to a hospital just to be sure, and the doctor gave me a clean bill of health. I returned home and continued to live a mundane life. I haven't been to another beach since then due to the trauma from the last experience. However, that's not the only reason why I fear the ocean today. I thought a lot about the happening on that day, and I returned to the same conclusion every single time. I saw the body of the boy in the water, and I wasn't imagining things out of guilt. I think he wanted to take me with him. Like his father, he blames me for his untimely departure from this world. He awaits me out in the ocean, but he'll never have me because I'm never going back in the water again.